There is one thing in school that everyone dreads: exams. We as students hate them, but educators rely on them to help measure a student's knowledge over a given subject. For them, exams are an easy way to measure what students are learning while they save time on grading. But as a pre med major, I volunteered at a few hospitals before, and the information that I needed to know was often different from what I was tested on in school. So today, we're talking about the cons of standardized testing. And at the end of my speech, I hope to convince you that standardized tests are not the best way to measure conceptual knowledge. And I'll give you 3 reasons why. First, standardized tests force students to prioritize memory over mastery. Second, standardized tests limit how students apply their knowledge outside of formulaic questions. And finally, standardized tests don't promote the skills that students need to succeed outside of the classroom. Now, what I mean by memory over mastery is that exams focus on a large spread of concepts without going into much detail. According to a 2024 review published in the article Higher Education, traditional high-stakes exams tend to focus on surface-level learning instead of measuring conceptual understanding. This means that students miss out on the deeper meanings while only studying what we need to pass, which tends to just be the bare minimum. Both the authors of this next study are researchers and experts in higher level physics education. From the study, What Are We Assessing? In 2028, James Lappery and Marcos Caballero confirmed that standardized tests assess students' knowledge about physics concepts, but they don't assess their ability to use those concepts to do physics. Because of the students' surface level understanding of the subject, they don't have the necessary information needed to dive deeper into its meaning and apply what they learned in a practical way. Speaking of which, standardized tests also limit how students apply their knowledge outside of these formulaic questions. In tandem with my last point, students study just enough about a subject to pass a test. But that doesn't translate well when we try to use this knowledge outside of these questions. Especially in STEM subjects like engineering and medical fields, knowing a concept in theory can be vastly different than seeing it firsthand. After all, practical experience can reveal real-world unpredictability that's rarely accounted for in theory. And because the questions are so formulaic, students also change their approach towards learning. In 2021, researchers from MSU found in their article, You Are What You Assess, that students were perfectly capable of plugging and chugging their way through over fully understanding the concepts. Realistically, it's easy for us students to find patterns to get our correct answers rather than to fully grasp the reasoning behind them. But in the long run, this habit harms our understanding and our ability to think critically. And these practical skills, like critical thinking, tend to be dismissed when students take standardized tests. In fact, chemistry professors Deraje Andergi and Tadashi Hagos found in their 2023 article, Effects on Formative Assessment with Technology in Students' Meaningful Learning in Chemistry Equilibrium Concepts, that only 55.6% of lectures use critical thinking level questions. That means almost half of lecture questions are not critically challenging enough for students to dig deeper into the concepts that we're learning. This leaves out valuable skills like challenging different positions and analyzing our research. And in a world where false information runs rampant, critical thinking skills matter much more than they ever have before. Researchers at Texas A&M University also conducted a study in 2024 about the occurrence of complex thinking skills in standardized tests, and in their article, Automatic Assessment of Text-Based Responses in Post-Secondary Education, they noted that open-ended questions and creativity-related tasks appear either inconsistently in standardized tests or don't show up at all. Because students are solely graded on objective facts, we don't get to practice combining the information we learn with the skills that we need, like the creativity and adaptability of open-ended tasks. Instead, we just memorize fragments information without connecting the pieces together. Today, I discussed why standardized tests are not the best way to measure a student's knowledge of subject matter. And that was because they focus on a spectrum of information that's just too broad. They don't prioritize comprehension, and their structures limit application. There's no doubt that standardized tests are an important tool when educators test their students. But perhaps educators should integrate more open-ended tests, like projects or experiments, so that they get to judge our depth of knowledge and how we apply it to the outside world. All the while, we students have a little more challenging fun exploring our fields.